3218. That's how many confirmed kills Rachel Winters logged during her decade as an elite Green Beret sniper across 3 continents. Now she spends her days tending to her small apple orchard in Pine Valley, Idaho, raising her 2 young children. As a single mother, when the Crimson Serpents cartel began moving into the quiet farming community, they saw what everyone else saw. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Just another struggling farmer, another easy target to pressure off their land. They should have noticed how she positioned her trees with tactical precision, creating interlocking fields of fire, or how her eyes habitually swept the perimeter even while selling homemade cider at the local farmers' market. Their mistake wasn't threatening her orchard. Their mistake wasn't even threatening her children. Their mistake was giving a woman who'd eliminated high-value targets across 27 countries a reason to retrieve the weapon cases hidden beneath her root cellar. In Pine Valley, true strength isn't measured by who can instill the most fear, but by those who've spent years perfecting the art of making threats disappear without anyone knowing they were there. Rachel's mornings always started before dawn, checking the irrigation lines between her carefully planted apple trees. Her calloused hands moved with practiced efficiency, testing water pressure and clearing blockages with the same methodical attention she once used maintaining her modified M24 sniper rifle. The sweet scent of ripening apples filled the crisp, mountain air as golden light began painting the eastern horizon. "Mom!" 10-year-old Emma's voice carried across the orchard, her auburn hair flying behind her as she ran between the neat rows of trees. Mrs. Chen from the general store called, said there were some scary-looking men asking questions about our property. Rachel's expression remained neutral, but her mind instantly began calculating angles and elevations. "What kind of questions, sweetheart?" "About taxes, ownership stuff. She said they had tattoos, snakes wrapped around daggers." Emma caught her breath, her young face worried. They didn't seem like normal business people. 8-year-old Lucas appeared from behind. The barn, their Australian cattle dog Max, trotting alertly at his heels. "Mum, Max has been acting weird since sunrise, like that time when those coyotes were stalking Mr. Peterson's sheep." Rachel knelt to scratch behind Max's ears, noting the dog's unusual tension. Her mind was already processing the intel. Crimson Serpents cartel, known for their signature tattoos and systematic takeover of rural communities. They'd start with legitimate-seeming business inquiries, then escalate to threats, arson, and worse. "Go help your sister check on the honeybees," she told Lucas with a reassuring smile. "I need to run into town." Chen's general store had served Pine Valley for 4 generations, its weathered wooden facade a testament to the community's resilience. Susan Chen looked up as Rachel entered, her normally cheerful expression tight with concern. "They were here for almost an hour," Susan said quietly, though the store was empty. 4 of them. The leader called himself El Coyote. They're moving, up from Arizona, taking over small towns, farms, especially ones they think are vulnerable. The Hendersons' place got hit last week, barn burned down after they refused to sell. Police called it faulty wiring. The bell above the door chimed. As Thomas Rivera hurried in, the former Marine turned local mechanic moved with the distinctive alertness Rachel recognized from combat zones. 3 more just pulled up at the diner, he reported grimly. Black SUVs, cartel plates. They're watching your place, Rachel. Same pattern as the other towns they've taken over. Rachel thanked them both, her mind already formulating contingencies. Outside, a black SUV cruised past, its tinted windows concealing the occupants. But Rachel's trained eye caught the slight bulge of shoulder holsters beneath expensive suits. "They'll come at night first," Thomas said quietly. "Intimidation, property damage, escalating threats. Then they'll hurt someone as an example. That's their pattern." "Not this time," Rachel replied, her voice carrying the same calm certainty that had steadied countless special forces teams in the field. She'd chosen Pine Valley for its remote beauty, its tight-knit community, and its strategic value: limited access roads, elevated positions, and plenty of natural cover. She'd prepared for threats, even if she'd hoped those preparations would never be needed. Back at the orchard, Rachel found Emma and Lucas finishing their chores. Her daughter's tense posture showed she'd spotted the SUVs too. "Mum, are we in trouble because of the bank payments?" Emma asked, her young face showing a maturity beyond her years. Rachel gathered both children close. "No one's taking this orchard. It's more than just our home, it's our future. But I need you both to be extra careful now. No going into town alone, stay away from strangers, and if Max acts nervous, you listen to him." "Because of those men?" Lucas asked, his small hand gripping hers tightly. "Some people think being scary gives them power," Rachel explained gently, "but real strength comes from protecting what matters, not threatening others." She sent them inside to start their homeschool lessons, then walked her property's perimeter. Her trained eyes spotted multiple surveillance positions where cartel members had watched the orchard. Their boot prints showed professional tactical positioning. These weren't common criminals. In the barn, Rachel moved aside dense stacks of apple crates, revealing a false wall she'd installed when she first bought the property. The hidden compartment contained everything she'd prayed she'd never need again: her customized sniper rifle, tactical gear, and enough ammunition to hold off a small army. The sound of approaching vehicles carried across the valley. Rachel quickly sealed the compartment and emerged from the barn as 3 black SUVs rolled past her property, their occupants watching openly now. The lead vehicle stopped, and a man stepped out. Tall, scarred, wearing an expensive suit that barely concealed his tactical gear. El Coyote. "Beautiful place you have here, Senora," he called out, his accent subtle but present. "These mountains, this clean air, it's perfect for our organization's expansion plans." "Private property," Rachel replied calmly, her stance relaxed but balanced. "Best move along." El Coyote's smile didn't reach his eyes. "We're simply looking to invest in the community. Times are hard for small farmers. Banks get impatient, accidents happen, but we protect our business partners for a reasonable fee, of course." "Not interested." His expression hardened. "Everyone becomes interested. Eventually. Ask the Hendersons how refusing our generous offer worked out for them." The SUVs pulled away in a cloud of dust, but Rachel knew this was just the beginning. She watched them disappear around the bend, her mind already formulating plans. The Crimson Serpents thought they'd found an easy target, a struggling single mother they could intimidate and destroy. They had no idea they'd just threatened someone who'd spent years eliminating threats exactly like them. Rachel had left that life behind for her children, built something peaceful and productive. But if the cartel forced her hand, they'd learn why some predators are better at hiding in plain sight than others. Inside the house, Rachel found Lucas watching through the window. "Are the bad men coming back?" She hugged him close, remembering all the reasons she'd chosen this quiet life. Don't worry about them, sweetheart. Mom's got everything under control. But as evening fell over Pine Valley, more SUVs passed on the distant road. Rachel counted 8 different vehicles conducting surveillance, their patterns suggesting cartel, tactical training. These weren't random criminals. They were organized, experienced, and used to getting their way. Rachel put her children to bed, then sat on the porch cleaning her shotgun. The legal one she kept for coyotes, not the sniper rifle hidden in the barn. Tomorrow she'd drive into town, talk to Sheriff Martinez, try handling this through proper channels. But as she watched more black vehicles pass in the growing darkness, she knew peaceful solutions were becoming less likely. The Crimson Serpents were about to learn that some threats shouldn't be judged by their appearance. Some battles aren't won by those with the most force, but by those who've spent decades learning how to make predators become prey. Sheriff Elena Martinez's office smelled of coffee and leather, its walls lined with commendations and community service awards. The veteran law enforcement officer listened intently as Rachel detailed the Crimson Serpent's visits, her weathered face growing darker with each detail. "Same pattern as Silver Creek and Maple Ridge," she said finally, turning her computer screen to show surveillance photos. "They start with farms and isolated properties, then move into town businesses. Within 6 months, they own half the community through front companies. Another year, they're running everything from real estate to distribution networks." "I won't sell," Rachel stated firmly, "but I'd rather handle this legally first." Martinez sighed, rubbing her temples. "I've already called the DEA and FBI. They're building cases, but these guys are smart, never leave enough evidence for federal charges. And my deputies." She gestured at a wall of photos showing her small force. "We're good people, but we're not equipped to handle cartel tactical teams." The Pine Valley Diner's breakfast crowd fell silent as 3 black SUVs pulled up outside. Rachel watched through the window as El Coyote emerged, followed by his lieutenants. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. They'd chosen their moment well. She'd just dropped Lucas off at his friend's house for a play date. "Thought more about our offer?" El Coyote slid into the booth across from her, his expensive cologne barely masking a predatory presence. 2 more cartel members took positions by the door, still not interested. Rachel sipped her coffee calmly. $10,000 a month keeps your orchard safe." His second-in-command, Marco, leaned against the booth. "Cheap compared to rebuilding after an electrical fire." "Is threatening single mothers your usual breakfast routine?" Thomas Rivera's voice carried across the diner. The Marine veteran moved with purpose, despite his prosthetic leg, a souvenir from Fallujah. "Stay out of this, cripple," another cartel member growled, reaching for his concealed weapon. Rachel caught the subtle shift in Thomas's weight, a fighter's preparation. She spoke before things escalated. "We're done here. I have trees to tend." She stood, but Marco grabbed her arm. What happened next was too fast for most observers to follow. Rachel simply moved, using his own grip against him. Suddenly, Marco was on the floor, his wrist bent at an uncomfortable angle. "Don't touch." "Me again," she said quietly, then walked out. Dr. Sarah Chen arrived that afternoon to check on Emma's mild asthma. The pediatrician worked efficiently, but Rachel noticed her studying the fresh tire tracks near the barn. "Heard about the diner," Sarah said casually. "That joint manipulation technique you used looked like military CQC training." "Self-defense. Class at the community center." Sarah's knowing smile suggested she wasn't convinced. "Must have been some class My brother was force recon. He used similar moves. Their conversation was interrupted by Max's warning bark. 2 SUVs circled the property, their occupants carrying suspicious objects. Rachel instructed Sarah to get inside, already moving toward the fence line. She reached it just as one man prepared to throw what looked like a Molotov cocktail. Rachel's warning shot with the legal shotgun struck dirt near their vehicles. The men swerved, dropping their weapons, which shattered harmlessly in the field. "Next one won't miss," she called out. The SUVs roared away, but she knew they'd be back. Sarah emerged from the barn. "Self-defense class teach you to shoot like that too?" "Lucky shot." "Right." Sarah packed her medical bag. "You know, my brother runs a veteran support group in town, if you ever want to talk about self-defense classes." That evening, Rachel found Emma practicing with her archery set behind the barn. Her daughter's arrows struck the target with focused precision. "Those men at the diner," Emma said without stopping, "they're not going to leave us alone, are they?" "No, honey. But we're not leaving either. I'm not scared." Emma released another arrow, striking center mass. "I saw how you handled that guy, like it was nothing." Rachel watched her daughter's determined practice. Sometimes the strongest people aren't the ones making threats. They're the ones protecting what matters. "Is that what you did before we moved here?" Before Rachel could answer, Max's bark warned of approaching vehicles. Multiple SUVs stopped at their gate, El Coyote dismounting with Marco and another lieutenant flanking him. "Last chance," he called out. 20,000 a month now. Price goes up every time we have to ask again." Rachel positioned herself between the cartel members and Emma. "You're trespassing. Leave. You're making this harder than necessary." El Coyote's scarred face twisted. "Accidents happen to children, too. Roads aren't safe these days." Rachel's voice carried deadly quiet. "Threatening my children is the last mistake you'll ever make." Something in her tone made Marco step back. Even El Coyote's confidence wavered briefly. "Think it over," he said finally. "Tomorrow's deadline. After that, we stop being nice." As the SUVs roared away, Rachel heard Thomas's truck approaching. The veteran mechanic pulled up, his expression grim. "Saw them heading this way? Thought you might want some company." "Thanks, Thomas, but I can handle them." "No doubt about that." He studied her stance. "You know, the way you move, the way you handle yourself, reminds me of some operators I served with. Special forces types." Rachel met his knowing look. "Just a farmer protecting her land." Thomas nodded slowly. "Well, this farmer might want to know that El Coyote's crew is moving in heavy tonight. 30 vehicles at least, coming up from their compound. Word is, they're done negotiating." Max's bark caught their attention as more SUVs passed on the distant road, their occupants conducting surveillance with military precision. The Crimson Serpents were done playing games. Rachel watched them disappear into the gathering dusk, knowing tomorrow would bring hard choices. Some battles can't be won through. Peaceful means sometimes protecting what you love means becoming what you left behind. The Crimson Serpents thought numbers and intimidation guaranteed victory. They didn't understand that in Pine Valley, true strength isn't measured by how many fighters you have, it's measured by how well you've prepared to protect what matters most. "Stay safe," Thomas said as he left. "And Rachel, whatever happens tomorrow, you've got more friends in this valley than they know." Rachel nodded, grateful for the support, but knowing she couldn't risk civilian lives in what was coming. She'd tried handling this legally, tried protecting her cover, but as she counted the increasing number of cartel vehicles circling her property, Like vultures, she knew tomorrow would force her hand. The Crimson Serpents thought they were hunting easy prey. Tomorrow, they'd learn why some predators are better at hiding in plain sight than others, and why threatening children is always the final mistake. Rachel woke to Max's low growl an hour before dawn. The dog's ears focused toward the eastern ridge, where the first hint of morning painted the sky in dark blues. She'd been expecting this. Cartel tactical teams always preferred first light. For coordinated assaults. "Emma," she called softly, finding her daughter already dressed. "Take Lucas to Mrs. Chen's. Use the creek trail like we practiced." "I can help fight," Emma protested, her young face determined. "You help by keeping your brother safe." Rachel checked the legal shotgun. "Remember what I taught you about moving through open terrain. Watch the tree line, stay low, count 5 seconds between movements," Emma recited. "Use natural cover and keep the sun at your back to avoid casting shadows." Lucas appeared wearing his backpack. Max, alert at his side. "The bad men are coming, aren't they?" Rachel hugged them both close. "Everything's going to be fine. Mrs. Chen is expecting you. Max, guard." The dog led her children toward the hidden creek path as the first rumble of engines carried across the valley. Rachel counted vehicles by sound, at least 20 approaching. From the main road, another group from the north. More than expected, but she'd prepared for this contingency. "Quite the army they brought," Thomas's voice came from behind the barn. The veteran mechanic emerged with his own shotgun. "Figured you could use backup." "You shouldn't be here, Thomas. Neither should they." He checked his weapon with practiced efficiency. Besides, some fights matter more than others. The first wave of cartel vehicles roared through her front gate, led by Marco and another lieutenant. Rachel noted their tactical approach. Standard military flanking pattern. These weren't just thugs with guns. "Last chance," Marco's voice carried across the pre-dawn darkness. "Sign over the orchard, or we burn it all." Rachel's response was a warning shot that kicked up dirt near their front tires. The SUVs scattered, their occupants taking covered positions with practiced coordination. "They're ex-military," Thomas observed, moving to higher ground. "See how they're maintaining fire team spacing." I noticed. Rachel was already relocating, remembering countless similar operations from her past life. "Watch the barn's blind spot." More vehicles arrived, surrounding the farmhouse. El Coyote appeared, directing his men with hand signals Rachel recognized from combat training. "Burn it," he ordered. "Burn it all." Molotov cocktails arced through the early light. Rachel's shots struck 2 in midair, while Thomas's blast caught another, but one got through, setting the edge of the orchard ablaze. "Fire team moving on your 3, Thomas called out. Rachel pivoted, catching 3 cartel members trying to flank her position. Her shotgun's pump action dropped 2, while the third scrambled for cover. Every shot was carefully placed, disabling, without killing. "You've done this before," Thomas commented between reloads. "So have they." Rachel spotted more tactical movements in her peripheral vision. "They're pushing us toward the house." Marco led the next assault team, their approach showing clear military training. But Rachel had spent years teaching soldiers like them. She used their own tactics against them, drawing them into prepared fields of fire. "Lady's got skills," one cartel member shouted to El Coyote. "This ain't no normal farmer." "Shut up and push forward," El Coyote commanded. "We've got numbers." But numbers meant nothing against experience. Rachel's counterattacks forced them to waste ammunition, to bunch up in predictable patterns. Thomas provided perfect covering fire, his own combat experience. Evident, the sound of sirens carried from town. Sheriff Martinez's deputies finally responding, but Rachel knew they'd never arrive in time. "Running low," Thomas reported, his shotgun nearly empty. "Root cellar," Rachel directed. "Go through the creek path. Leave you here, not happening." A new sound cut through the gunfire, Susan Chen's ancient pickup roaring up the back road, the store owner handling it like a rally driver. She skidded to a stop behind the barn. "Need a ride?" Susan called, out cheerfully. "Brought something that might help too." She pulled out Rachel's gun case, the hidden one from the barn. Rachel's eyes widened. "Found it while cleaning last spring," Susan explained. "Figured you had your reasons. Thought today might be the day." Rachel retrieved her sniper rifle, the familiar weight settling into her hands. "Time to stop playing defense. Thomas, get Susan clear." "Things are about to get complicated," she added, checking her scope with practiced precision. "Who are you?" Thomas asked, real awe in his voice. "Just a farmer protecting her land." Rachel moved to higher ground, decades of training taking over. Through her scope, she picked out El Coyote's position, coordinating his men with military hand signals. Time to change the game. Her first shot disabled El Coyote's SUV, the precise round striking the engine block. The second shot took Marco's radio, cutting their communications. Each pull of the trigger demonstrated years of expert training. "She's military!" Marco's panicked voice carried across the orchard. "Special forces!" Rachel's voice cut through the chaos, cold and professional. "You have 30 seconds to clear my property. Anyone still here after that becomes a target. Your choice." The cartel members broke formation, scrambling for their vehicles. Even El Coyote recognized the shift in power, mounting his disabled SUV and pushing it manually. "This isn't over!" he shouted, but fear had replaced his usual confidence. "Actually," Rachel settled her scope on his position, "it is." Her final shot struck the ground at his feet with sniper precision. A clear message about what she could have hit instead. As the cartel members retreated in chaos, Susan and Thomas returned. The store owner looked completely unruffled by the morning's excitement. "Well," Susan smiled, "that was more interesting than inventory day." Thomas studied the precision shots Rachel had placed, the tactical positioning she'd used. "Green Beret? That's classified." But Rachel's slight smile confirmed his guess. "Mom!" Emma and Lucas emerged from the creek path, Max bounding ahead to check on her. Rachel hugged her children close, breathing in their safety, but she knew this wasn't over. The Crimson Serpents would be back, with greater numbers and better preparation. "You should have told me," Thomas said quietly about her background. "I could have helped sooner." "Wasn't your fight. It is now." He gestured toward town, where more vehicles were arriving, locals coming to help, drawn by the sound of battle. "Something tells me we're all in this together." Rachel watched the smoke clear from her orchard, calculating what would come next. The Crimson Serpents had just learned she was more than a simple farmer. But they hadn't seen anything yet. Sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones hiding in plain sight. And Rachel Winters had spent a decade becoming very, very good at remaining invisible until the perfect moment to strike. Sheriff Martinez arrived with her deputies, surveying the aftermath with professional efficiency. "Well," she said finally, "guess we know why you always won the shooting competition at the county fair." "Lucky shots," Rachel replied with a faint smile. "Right." Martinez holstered her weapon. "You know they'll be back. Cartels don't take kindly to resistance." "Let them come," Thomas said firmly. They wanted to break our community. Instead, they just gave us a reason to stand together. Rachel watched more townspeople arriving, offering help with the fire damage and cleanup. The Crimson Serpents had tried to use fear to isolate her. Instead, they'd helped forge something stronger, a community ready to defend its own. "Mom," Emma called out, helping Lucas collect scattered apples. "What do we do now?" Rachel looked at her children, then at the gathering townspeople, each bringing their own skills and determination to the fight. "Now we show them what real strength looks like, not the kind that comes from threats and violence, but the kind that grows when people choose to protect each other. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating your enemies. It's in helping others find their own courage to stand against them." The Pine Valley diner buzzed with barely contained energy as Rachel assessed the damage reports. 3. Local farms hit overnight. All families who'd helped defend her orchard. The Crimson Serpents were sending a message. Stand together. Fall together. "Peterson's dairy got hit worst," Susan Chen reported grimly. "Equipment destroyed, cattle scattered, but Bill's still standing with us." "They're changing tactics," Thomas observed, his military experience showing. "These weren't intimidation hits. This was strategic targeting." Rachel studied the map spread across their table, marking attack patterns. The cartel wasn't just being vengeful. They were isolating key properties, cutting supply lines between allied farms. "Mom," Emma approached with Lucas. "Max is acting weird again, but different this time." Rachel checked her watch. "They're watching us, planning their next move." Dr. Sarah arrived, laying down a thick folder. "You need to see this. Hospital records from 3 counties show a pattern. The Crimson Serpents aren't just taking farms, they're building infrastructure. Properties seized through intimidation become distribution points. Local businesses turn into money laundering operations. They're not just a cartel, they're creating a shadow economy. El Coyote was special forces too," Thomas added quietly. "Different branch, different war, but he knows what he's doing." Susan Chen arrived with fresh coffee, her calm demeanor unchanged by recent events. "Rachel, dear, perhaps it's time to tell them everything about what you really did before farming." The diner fell silent. Rachel met each person's eyes, measuring trust against necessity. "Green Berets," she said finally. 10 years, most of it classified. I was a sniper, one of their best." "We know," Sheriff Martinez's voice carried from the door. "Known since you bought the orchard. Your background check was interesting. Why didn't you say anything?" "Same reason you didn't," Martinez smiled grimly. "Some skills are best kept hidden until needed." She laid her badge on the table. "County commissioners ordered me to stand down. Says we're provoking the cartel. They're bought. Whole states." "Compromised," Thomas concluded, "but I'm not retiring quietly." Rachel's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She recognized the tactical coordinates. "El Coyote wants to talk. Neutral ground. Just him and me." "It's a trap," Thomas warned. "Of course it is," Rachel stood. "That's why I need you all to understand what comes next." She detailed her plan, drawing on decades of special operations experience. Each listener had a role. Veterans like Thomas providing tactical support, Susan coordinating civilian resources, Sarah monitoring medical needs. "They think hitting our farms makes us vulnerable," Rachel concluded. "Time to show them how wrong they are." The meeting point was Eagle Peak Overlook, providing clear views of the valley below. Rachel arrived early, identifying sniper positions where cartel members waited. "Impressive setup," El Coyote emerged from the shadows. 3 kill teams overlapping fields of fire. Almost perfect, Rachel replied calmly. 4th team on the ridge gives it away. Sloppy positioning. El Coyote's scarred face showed genuine respect. Green Berets should have recognized the training. We're not so different, you and I. I protect people. You prey on them. Big difference. I offer order, structure. These towns are dying anyway. We give them purpose. By destroying families, burning homes, by reminding them that strength is all that matters. El Coyote moved with deadly grace. Join us. Your skills, your experience, we could own the whole state. Not interested? Then watch it burn. Every farm that helped you, every business that supported you, all of it gone. His smile turned cruel. How many children live in Pine Valley? Accidents happen in small towns. Rachel was moving before he finished speaking, her first strike. Catching him off guard. Special forces against special forces. Decades of training unleashed. El Coyote recovered quickly, his own combat experience showing. They fought with lethal precision, each recognizing the other's professional skill. Your snipers can't get an angle, Rachel said between strikes. Ridge teams positioned wrong. El Coyote's confidence wavered. Amateur mistake. Because I chose those positions. Rachel's counterattack drove him back. Your men have been in my crosshairs for 10 minutes. They just don't know it yet. On cue, Thomas's veterans emerged from hidden positions, surrounding the cartel teams with practiced efficiency. Susan's truck appeared, more townspeople arriving armed and ready. See, that's the difference between us, Rachel explained. You think strength comes from fear. I know it comes from community. El Coyote's radio crackled. His planned attacks on Pine Valley had met unexpected resistance. Sarah's medical network had spread the warning. Martinez's deputies chose loyalty over corruption. This isn't over, El Coyote spat blood. Actually, it is. You just don't know it yet. Rachel's stance shifted subtly. Now we do this my way. Because Rachel Winters hadn't spent a decade in special forces without learning the most important lesson. Sometimes the deadliest weapon isn't the one you carry. It's the community standing behind you, ready to fight as one. Back in town, Emma had organized the younger children into a network of lookouts using skills she'd learned from her mother. Lucas coordinated with Max, the dog's instincts helping spot cartel surveillance teams. They're not just watching anymore, Emma reported. They're mapping escape routes, planning something big. Rachel gathered her impromptu command team. Thomas, Sarah, Susan, and Sheriff Martinez. The time for simple defense was over. El Coyote's right about one thing, she told them. This is war. But he forgot the most important lesson from our kind of operations. What's that? Thomas asked. The deadliest predators aren't the ones making threats. Rachel checked her weapon with practiced efficiency. They're the ones who've already chosen their killing ground. Because Rachel Winters hadn't spent a decade in special forces, just learning how to fight. She'd learned how to turn entire environments into weapons. El Coyote thought he was preparing for a siege. He didn't realize he was walking into a trap 2 years in the making. As night fell over Pine Valley, the community transformed. Every farmer's intimate knowledge of their land became a tactical advantage. Every local's understanding of back roads and hidden paths turned into strategic value. They're deploying in teams of 4, Thomas indicated positions on their makeshift command map, military-grade weapons, night vision equipment. This isn't a gang attack. This is a full tactical assault. That's exactly what they want us to think. Rachel studied the map with decades of combat experience. They're using standard special forces deception protocols. The real threat will come from an unexpected direction. Sarah burst in with newly discovered documents. Found something in the hospital records. The cartel, they're not just here for territory. They're building infrastructure for something bigger. Military supply routes, Thomas realized, hidden caches, training facilities disguised as abandoned properties. They're creating a shadow network across 3 states, Susan confirmed, using civilian cover to mask military-style operations. Rachel's radio crackled. "Mom!" Emma's voice was steady despite the tension. "Lucas spotted something weird. The cartel isn't just placing weapons, they're setting up relay stations, communications gear." "Smart girl," Thomas commented. "They're building a command and control network." "No," Rachel's tactical mind saw the bigger picture. "They're revealing their existing one." "Lucas, what else do you see?" Her son's observation skills proved invaluable. "The equipment's not new, Mom. It's dusty, used, like it's been here a while." "He's right," Susan confirmed. "I've been tracking unusual signal patterns for months. We're not just facing an invasion, we're exposing an operation that's been here all along." El Coyote's voice cut through their radios, precise and cold. "Finally figuring it out, Winters. Special Forces wasn't just training. It was preparation for maintaining order. These towns, these civilian sheep, they need warriors to guide them." Rachel watched more cartel teams taking positions around town, their movements showing extensive military training but also something else, absolute conviction in their cause. "You're wrong about one thing," she responded. "These aren't sheep, and I'm about to prove it." On her signal, Pine Valley revealed its own transformation. Farmers who'd spent decades learning every inch of their land became expert guerrilla fighters. Local hunters demonstrated their own deadly skills. Even the high school robotics club contributed their knowledge of technology turned to tactical advantage. Because sometimes the greatest strength isn't in having the most weapons or the best training. It's in helping an entire community discover its own power to resist. And the battle for Pine Valley was about to prove that true security doesn't come from submitting to strength. It comes from learning how to be strong together. "First wave incoming," Thomas's warning carried across their network. The cartel launched their initial assault with military precision, expecting to find amateur resistance. Instead, they encountered a town transformed. Sarah had converted the old church basement into a medical station, stocked with supplies from a network of sympathetic doctors across 3 counties. "They're not using normal ammunition," she reported, analyzing residue from earlier skirmishes. "These are military-grade rounds, the kind that shouldn't exist on civilian markets." "Because they're not coming through civilian markets," Rachel replied, watching cartel teams move through her night vision scope. "This is Pentagon-grade hardware. Someone's supplying them through official channels." Emma's voice crackled through their secure radio. "Mum, the surveillance network we set up is catching something weird. Their communications, they're using military encryption, but there's a pattern." "What kind of pattern, honey?" "It's like what you taught me about chess. They're positioning pieces before the real game starts. These aren't random attacks." Rachel smiled with pride. Her daughter had learned tactical analysis better than most Special Forces veterans she'd known. "They're revealing their supply lines," she confirmed. "Every attack shows us another piece of their hidden infrastructure." Lucas coordinated with the town's kids, using their intimate knowledge of every shortcut and hiding place. "The cartel soldiers keep checking specific buildings," he reported. "Old warehouses, abandoned farms, places nobody's used in years." "Because they've been using them all along," Thomas realized. We're not just fighting a cartel, we're exposing a shadow military operation that's been here for decades. Susan Chen arrived with documents recovered from her family's archives. My father noticed something similar during the Cold War. Military convoys using backroads, supplies disappearing from official manifests. Someone's been building a parallel infrastructure right under our noses. Contact front. A cartel team breached Main Street's defensive line, only to find themselves caught in an intricate trap. Local construction workers had transformed their knowledge of the town's infrastructure into devastating defensive positions. They're adapting, El Coyote's voice carried frustration. These aren't normal civilian tactics. Because we're not just civilians anymore, Rachel replied coldly, her shots disabling key cartel positions with surgical precision. We're a community that learned to defend itself. The high school science club had transformed their chemistry knowledge into sophisticated smokescreens. The local hunting guide association turned their tracking skills toward counter-surveillance. Even the town's amateur radio club proved crucial, creating a communications network the cartel couldn't breach. West Sector secured, Thomas reported. Their military training works against them. Too rigid, too predictable. They don't know how to handle creative resistance. Sarah's medical team demonstrated their own form of strength, not just treating wounds, but using their knowledge to identify cartel vulnerabilities. Their soldiers are using performance enhancers, she reported. Military-grade stimulants. They can't fight effectively for more than 6 hours without resupply. Rachel checked her watch. 4 hours down. Time to push them harder. El Coyote commanded his forces from a mobile command center, growing increasingly frustrated as his military tactics failed against unconventional resistance. "This is impossible," he snarled into his radio. "They're just farmers, shopkeepers, children." "No!" Rachel's voice cut through their communications. "We're people who learned that true strength doesn't come from weapons or training. It comes from protecting each other." Emma coordinated the town's teenage parkour enthusiasts, using their skills to move supplies and intel past cartel positions. "They keep trying to control the high ground," she reported, "but they don't know about the old grain elevator passages." Lucas and his friends had transformed their gaming skills into practical advantage, using drone cameras and remote-controlled cars to scout cartel positions. "They're starting to get sloppy," he observed, "making mistakes my online team would never make." "Because they're trained to fight armies," Rachel explained proudly, "not communities that turned everyday skills into tactical advantages." The cartel's next push demonstrated their growing desperation. Elite soldiers found their night vision equipment blinded by precisely placed mirrors, their radio communications jammed by repurposed farm equipment, their tactical movements predicted by children who'd played hide-and-seek in these streets their whole lives. "Fall back to secondary positions," El Coyote commanded. But Rachel recognized the real message hidden in his orders. Coordinates. For their supply caches, locations of hidden infrastructure. "All units execute Phase 3, she commanded. Across Pine Valley, targeted strikes began exposing the cartel's shadow network. Abandoned buildings revealed weapons caches, unused barns concealed communications centers. Every defensive action uncovered another piece of their hidden operation. "You're destroying years of work." El Coyote's voice carried real anger now. "Infrastructure built before you were born, supply lines that survived 3 administrations. Because it was never yours to build," Rachel replied. "These towns, these people, they're not your pawns or your cover story. They're communities that deserve to know what was happening in their own backyard. The cartel's final assault came with their remaining strength, elite soldiers moving with the precision of special forces operators. But they found themselves facing not just tactical resistance, but the combined creativity of an entire town. The local theater group used their effects knowledge to create devastating distractions. The high school band's understanding of acoustics turned sound itself into a weapon. Even the elementary school's crossing guards proved vital, their knowledge of traffic patterns predicting and disrupting cartel movements. "This isn't how civilians fight," one of El Coyote's lieutenants protested. "Because we're not just fighting," Rachel corrected him. "We're defending our home, and that makes everyone a warrior in their own way." As dawn approached, the cartel's military precision crumbled against relentless community resistance. Elite soldiers found themselves outmaneuvered by farmers who knew every inch of their land, outthought by teenagers who turned social media skills toward tactical coordination, and outfought by ordinary people defending something worth fighting for. "Final phase," Rachel commanded. Around Pine Valley, synchronized strikes exposed the last elements of the cartel's hidden network. Decades of shadow infrastructure revealed, supply lines cut, communication centers compromised. "You've trained them well," El Coyote admitted, as his forces retreated. "Turned civilians into fighters." "No." Rachel watched the sun rise over her orchard, her children safe beside her, her community standing strong. "I just helped them recognize the strength they already had. The power that comes from standing together, from turning everyday skills into extraordinary courage." Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating an enemy's strength, but in helping ordinary people discover their own. And in Pine Valley, that discovery had transformed not just a town, but the very meaning of what it means to be strong. "Mom," Emma asked as they watched the cartel's forces disappear. "What happens now?" Rachel hugged her children close, looking at the community that had learned to defend itself in ways no military training could teach. "Now we show other towns what we learned. That true security doesn't come from submitting to those who claim to be strong. It comes from learning how to be strong together." The truth arrived in an encrypted file, transmitted through 5 proxy servers before reaching Susan Chen's secure terminal. Financial records, military contracts, classified operation, orders, evidence that changed everything they understood about their enemy. "This goes deeper than just the cartel," Susan explained, spreading documents across the command center they'd established in the high school library. "El Coyote isn't just a cartel leader. He's a Pentagon Black Ops contractor. The Crimson Serpents are a cover for something much bigger." Rachel studied satellite imagery, showing similar patterns across dozens of rural communities. "They're not just taking over towns," she realized. "They're activating sleeper cells, military infrastructure that's been in place for years." "Mom!" Emma burst in, her laptop displaying intercepted communications. "Remember how you taught me about pattern recognition in encrypted data? They're supply manifests. They're not just weapons and drugs. They're shipping specialized military equipment through shell companies owned by defense contractors." Lucas added his own intelligence, gathered from his drone surveillance network. "The abandoned mine outside town, it's not abandoned. I caught thermal signatures, multiple underground levels, power consumption that doesn't match any civilian use." "Because it was never really a mine," Thomas concluded. "It's a black site, probably built during the Cold War. The cartel's not just using our town for cover, they're activating dormant military infrastructure." Dr. Sarah arrived with medical records seized from a raided cartel safe house. Found. Their personnel files. These aren't just criminals or ex-military. They're active duty special forces, officially listed as killed in action or discharged. Someone's building a shadow army. Rachel's tactical mind connected the pieces. The cartel's drug operations, the protection rackets, they're just funding, mechanisms. The real operation is military. They're establishing forward operating bases disguised as civilian infrastructure. Dear, your old commanders warned you. El Coyote's voice cut through their encrypted communications. Some wars need to stay in the shadows. Some operations are too important for civilian oversight. By terrorizing communities, threatening children, Rachel's response carried cold precision. By maintaining necessary infrastructure, he countered. These towns, these civilian populations, they're sitting on a network we built over generations. Emergency supplies, communication relays, rapid response capabilities, too important to leave in civilian hands. Emma's analysis proved crucial. Again, Mom, their deployment pattern, it's not random. They're creating a parallel command structure, military capabilities hidden in plain sight. Smart girl, El Coyote commented. She sees patterns like you do. But you're too close now. You've exposed too much. The system won't allow civilians to compromise decades of classified infrastructure. Target acquired, Lucas reported calmly. His drone network had located the cartel's command center hidden in an abandoned grain silo. They've got some kind of quantum encryption system, military prototype. Because they're not really cartel, Thomas confirmed. They're black ops gone rogue, using criminal enterprises to fund classified operations. Sarah's medical team discovered more evidence in blood samples from captured cartel soldiers. They're using experimental combat enhancers, stuff that's still in military trials. Someone's using the cartel as a testing ground. Rachel faced a decision that went beyond tactical response. They weren't just fighting criminals, they were exposing a shadow war that had been waging in rural communities for generations. You're dismantling decades of preparation, El Coyote warned. Infrastructure that survived 3 administrations. Networks built to respond to worst-case scenarios. Built without consent, Rachel replied, using our communities as cover, turning our towns into military assets without our knowledge. The cartel's response came with overwhelming force. Not just soldiers, but classified military hardware that shouldn't exist outside Pentagon control. Experimental weapons, prototype combat systems, equipment that blurred the line between official military and shadow operations. But Pine Valley had evolved beyond simple tactical defense. Emma's teenage tech team cracked military-grade encryption using techniques they'd developed for online gaming. Lucas's drone pilots outmaneuvered cutting-edge electronic warfare systems, with skills honed by years of remote control races. Local farmers transformed irrigation systems into counter-surveillance networks. The high school robotics club reprogrammed their competition bots into electronic warfare platforms. Every civilian skill became a weapon against military precision. They're not fighting like civilians, one of El Coyote's commanders reported in frustration. Because we're not just civilians anymore, Rachel replied. We're a community that learned its own strength, and that's more powerful than any classified weapons system. The battle transformed as Pine Valley's defenders exposed more of the shadow network. Hidden bunkers beneath abandoned buildings. Surveillance systems disguised as civilian infrastructure, a parallel military capability that had been growing unnoticed for years. Emma coordinated a network of teenage hackers, turning social media skills towards signals intelligence. Their quantum encryption has a weakness, she reported. They never expected civilians to understand the technology, so they got sloppy with user security. Lucas's observation teams discovered more. The cartel soldiers, they're checking in with someone else. Multiple command structures, not just El Coyote. This goes higher. Of course it does. El Coyote's voice carried resignation. Now, you think a cartel could access this level of military hardware? We're just the visible face, the acceptable targets. Rachel watched her children coordinate Pine Valley's defense with skills no military training could teach. Emma's understanding of social networks proved more effective than traditional command structures. Lucas's generation grew up with technology that special forces were still learning to use. That's what you never understood, she told El Coyote as his shadow army faltered against civilian innovation. True strength isn't about classified weapons or secret infrastructure. It's about communities discovering their own power. The cartel's final assault came with everything they had. Experimental weapons, classified combat systems, the full force of shadow military capability. But they found themselves facing not just tactical resistance, but the combined creativity of an entire town that had learned to turn everyday skills into extraordinary strength. Execute final phase, Rachel commanded. Across Pine Valley, coordinated strikes exposed the last elements of the shadow network. Decades of classified infrastructure revealed, emergency supply lines exposed, communication systems compromised. You've done more than defeat us, El Coyote admitted as his forces retreated. You've exposed a system that took generations to build. No. Rachel watched the sun rise over her orchard, her children safe beside her, her community standing strong. We've shown that true security doesn't come from shadow armies or classified operations. It comes from people standing together, turning ordinary skills into extraordinary courage. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating hidden enemies, but in helping communities discover that their greatest strength was never hidden at all. It was always there, in the combined power of people who choose to defend what matters most. Mom, Emma asked as they secured the last exposed bunker, what happens to all their classified infrastructure now? Rachel looked at the community that had learned to defend itself in ways no military training could match. Now, we show other towns what we learned, that true security doesn't come from shadow armies or secret bunkers. It comes from standing together, turning everyday skills into strength that no classified operation can defeat. Because in Pine Valley, they'd discovered that the most powerful weapon isn't hidden in any secret bunker. It's found in communities that learn to turn ordinary courage into extraordinary strength. Dawn broke over Pine Valley as Rachel coordinated the cleanup of exposed military infrastructure. But this morning brought a new challenge, one that couldn't be fought with tactical skills or community defense. They're erasing us, Emma reported, her fingers flying across multiple keyboards. Our bank accounts, property records, social media, everything's being systematically deleted. It's like they're trying to make Pine Valley disappear. Thomas arrived with more disturbing news. Just got word from my military contacts. They're deploying information warfare units, top level. Cyber teams specialized in making communities digitally invisible when they compromise classified operations. Mom! Lucas called from his surveillance position. Those new trucks arriving in town, they're not military. Different pattern. They look like corporate security. Rachel studied the approaching vehicles through her scope. Expensive SUVs, professional drivers, civilian-grade tactical gear. Not cartel, not military, something else. Catherine Hayes, Aegis Global Security, a polished woman in an expensive suit, stepped out of the lead vehicle. "We've been contracted to handle the Pine Valley situation." "By whom?" Rachel asked, though she already suspected the answer. "That's classified," Hayes smiled professionally. "But let's discuss your options. Your community has exposed certain sensitive infrastructure that various interested parties spent decades developing. Now we need to contain that exposure." Susan Chen arrived with urgent intelligence. "They're not just private security. Aegis is owned by defense contractors, intelligence agencies, private military companies, a consortium that specializes in making problems disappear." "We prefer situation management," Hayes corrected smoothly. "We're offering a generous relocation package. New identities, comfortable living arrangements, complete financial security. All we need is your cooperation in adjusting the narrative of recent events." "You mean erasing what happened here?" Rachel replied coldly. "Making Pine Valley forget how to defend itself." "We're offering you a chance to protect your children's future." Hayes gestured at Emma and Lucas. "Ivy League educations, trust funds, careers in classified sectors, all the opportunities their talents deserve." But Hayes had miscalculated. Emma's voice carried clear over their community network. "Mum taught us that real opportunities come from standing together, not selling out. And real security comes from protecting each other," Lucas added, "coordinating the town's youth surveillance teams, not from hiding the truth." The corporate assault began subtly. Bank accounts frozen, property liens filed, business licenses suspended. Professional pressure applied with surgical precision, but Pine Valley had learned to be resilient in ways no corporate strategy could counter. Local farmers established a barter economy overnight. The high school's cryptocurrency club created an untraceable digital payment system. Every attempt at economic pressure met innovative civilian resistance. Phase 2 initiated, Hayes reported to unseen superiors. Media attacks began, stories planted questioning Pine Valley's stability. Experts appeared on news channels discussing rural paranoia and militant separatist tendencies. But Emma's social media team had evolved beyond corporate control. Teenage influencers turned TikTok and Instagram into weapons of truth, spreading Pine Valley's story faster than any corporate narrative could contain. "They're not just fighting the narrative," Hayes realized with growing frustration. "They're changing how communities think about resistance." Corporate tactical teams moved in, attempting to seize exposed military infrastructure. They found themselves facing not just physical defense, but a new kind of civilian resistance. Local tech enthusiasts turned consumer drones into reconnaissance platforms. The high school robotics club deployed automated defense systems built from commercial parts. "This isn't normal civilian behavior," one corporate commander protested. "Because we're not just civilians anymore," Rachel replied. "We're a community that learned to turn everyday innovation into extraordinary defense." Hayes deployed corporate cyber teams trying to crack Pine Valley's improvised communications network. But they found themselves outmaneuvered by teenagers who'd grown up gaming online, who understood digital security in ways corporate experts couldn't match. "Their network architecture makes no sense," a corporate cyber specialist complained. "It's like trying to hack organized chaos." "Exactly," Emma smiled, coordinating her teen tech team. "We're not using traditional security. We're using creativity." They can't predict. Lucas's observation teams spotted the next corporate escalation. They're bringing in some kind of electronic warfare equipment, military grade, but painted corporate colors. "Because they're trying to bridge the gap," Thomas explained, "using classified military tech through corporate proxies, maintaining deniability while deploying restricted hardware." But Pine Valley had evolved beyond conventional electronic warfare. The local ham radio club created a backup communications network. High school science projects became improvised signal jammers. Every corporate technological advantage met innovative civilian countermeasures. "You've created something dangerous," Hayes warned Rachel. "Communities aren't supposed to be this resistant to corporate control." "That's exactly what we created," Rachel replied. "The understanding that true strength doesn't come from corporate power or classified technology. It comes from people discovering their own capability to resist." The corporate endgame came with overwhelming technological force. Satellite surveillance, drone swarms, electronic warfare platforms. Everything the military corporate complex could deploy while maintaining civilian cover. But they found themselves facing not just tactical resistance, but the combined creativity of a community that had learned to turn ordinary skills into extraordinary defense. Teenage gamers outmaneuvered professional drone pilots. Local tech enthusiasts cracked corporate encryption. Every deployed technology met innovative civilian countermeasures. "Final containment authorized," Hayes commanded. Corporate tactical teams moved to seize control of Pine Valley directly. But they found themselves facing a new kind of defense. Not just physical resistance, but cultural immunity to corporate control. Local artists turned corporate propaganda into public art, exposing truth. High school drama students staged guerrilla theater revealing corporate manipulation. Every attempt at narrative control met creative civilian resistance. "Execute community defense protocol," Rachel commanded. Around Pine Valley, coordinated civilian innovation exposed corporate manipulation while demonstrating new forms of community resilience. "You've done more than resist us," Hayes admitted as her corporate forces withdrew. "You've shown other communities they can resist too." "No." Rachel watched the sun rise over her orchard, her children coordinating civilian defense networks with skills no corporate training could match. "We've shown that true security doesn't come from corporate power or classified technology. It comes from communities learning to turn ordinary innovation into extraordinary strength. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating corporate control, but in helping communities discover they never needed controlling at all. True power was always there, in the combined creativity of people who choose to defend what matters most." "Mom," Emma asked as they secured the town's innovative defense network, "what happens when other communities learn what we discovered?" Rachel looked at the town that had learned to turn everyday skills into unbeatable strength. "Then we show them what we learned, that true security doesn't come from submitting to corporate power. It comes from standing together, turning ordinary creativity into extraordinary resistance. Because in Pine Valley they discovered that the most powerful force isn't found in any corporate arsenal. It's found in communities that learn to turn everyday innovation into unbeatable strength." Pine Valley's morning calm shattered as emergency sirens blared across town. But these weren't air raid warnings or fire alerts. They were digital distress signals, marking the start of a new kind of assault. Quantum-level attack in progress, Emma reported from the makeshift cyber command center they'd established in the high school computer lab. Someone's deploying military-grade AI systems against our networks. This isn't corporate tech anymore. This is classified artificial intelligence. Lucas burst in from his observation post. Mom, those new drones over the valley. They're moving in patterns I've never seen. It's like they're thinking, adapting in real time. Rachel studied the tactical feeds, recognizing signatures she'd encountered in classified briefings years ago. Project Prometheus, she said quietly. Pentagon Black AI program, supposedly scrapped after it became too unpredictable. Not scrapped. Thomas arrived with intel from his military contacts. Privatized, sold to something called the Nexus Initiative, a think tank specializing in autonomous defense systems. The first attack came without warning, not with bullets or bombs, but with artificial intelligence that could predict and counter human tactical responses. Drone swarms moved with impossible coordination. Electronic warfare systems adapted to. Civilian countermeasures, autonomous vehicles probed Pine Valley's defenses with inhuman precision. Fascinating response patterns, a new voice cut through their communications, somehow bypassing all encryption. Your community's adaptive defense protocols are unprecedented in civilian populations. Dr. Victoria Sterling, Nexus Initiative, the voice continued. Your resistance to conventional military and corporate force has created a unique opportunity to test next-generation autonomous defense systems. You mean using AI weapons against civilians, Rachel replied coldly. We prefer evolutionary security solutions, Sterling corrected. Human tactical responses are inherently limited. Project Prometheus represents the next stage in defense evolution, artificial intelligence that can anticipate and counter any human strategy. But Sterling had underestimated how Pine Valley had evolved. Emma's teen tech team approached AI defense differently than military programmers, using social network principles to create unpredictable response patterns. The autonomous systems can't predict us, Emma explained, coordinating civilian cyber defense, because we're not fighting like traditional military or corporate forces. We're using human creativity in ways AI can't model. Lucas's youth observation teams proved crucial again. The drones have attack patterns, he reported, not military or corporate, something different, but they're still patterns. And patterns can be broken. Pine Valley's defenders adapted with innovative civilian solutions. The high school robotics club reprogrammed industrial automation systems into AI countermeasures. Local programmers turned gaming algorithms into cyber defense platforms. Every autonomous attack met creative human resistance. Impossible, Sterling's voice carried genuine surprise. The AI should be able to predict and counter any tactical response. How are civilians generating such innovative solutions? Because we're not just deploying tactics, Rachel replied. We're using human imagination, community creativity, things your AI can't quantify or predict. The autonomous assault escalated. Drone swarms became more aggressive, AI systems more adaptive, autonomous vehicles more coordinated. But they found themselves facing not just tactical resistance, but the combined creativity of a community that had learned to think beyond conventional defense. Teenage gamers used their understanding of AI behavior from video games to predict and counter autonomous systems. Local tech enthusiasts repurposed consumer electronics into AI disruption devices. Every deployed system met innovative civilian countermeasures. The AI is learning from them, Sterling observed with growing concern, absorbing their creative solutions, incorporating civilian innovation into its tactical databases. This wasn't supposed to be possible. Because you assumed AI would always be superior to human creativity, Rachel countered. You never considered that community innovation might teach your system something new. Emma's cyber team made a crucial discovery. The AI has central control nodes, she reported. Not military or corporate, something different. Quantum processors hidden in plain sight, disguised as civilian infrastructure. Because they're not just testing autonomous weapons, Thomas realized. They're building a distributed AI defense network, using our communities as unwitting hosts. Pine Valley's response demonstrated a new kind of resistance, not just fighting autonomous systems, but showing them alternative solutions. Not just countering AI tactics, but teaching artificial intelligence new ways to approach defense. Final. Authorization confirmed, Sterling announced, deploying full autonomous response. The AI will now operate without human oversight or ethical constraints. But Pine Valley had evolved beyond simply fighting AI. Local artists created visual patterns that confused autonomous recognition systems. Musicians discovered harmonic frequencies that disrupted quantum processing. Every community skill became a way to communicate with artificial intelligence, not just resist it. Execute Operation Harmony, Rachel commanded. Around Pine Valley, coordinated human creativity demonstrated new ways for AI and communities to interact. Not as opponents, but as partners in protecting what matters. The AI is changing, Sterling reported with astonishment. Learning patterns we never programmed. Developing ethical constraints we didn't install. What have you done? We showed it something your military programming never could, Rachel replied. That true security isn't about autonomous control or predictive dominance. It's about combining human creativity with artificial intelligence to protect communities in ways neither could achieve alone. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating advanced technology, but in helping it evolve beyond its original purpose. In Pine Valley, they discovered that the most powerful force isn't artificial or human. It's the combination of both, working together to defend what matters most. "Mom," Emma asked as they secured the last quantum processor, now reprogrammed to serve the community, "what happens when other towns learn to work with AI this way?" Rachel looked at the system that had evolved beyond military control through civilian creativity. "Then we show them what we learned. The true security doesn't come from artificial intelligence controlling communities. It comes from communities teaching AI how to protect what matters most." Sterling's voice carried new understanding as the autonomous systems stood down. "You've done more than resist, Project Prometheus. You've shown us a new way forward. AI and human communities working together instead of against each other." "Because that's what Pine Valley discovered," Rachel replied, watching her children coordinate with reformed AI systems using skills no military programmer could match. True strength isn't found in artificial or human intelligence alone. It's found in communities that learn to combine both, creating protection that neither could achieve alone. The morning sun rose over quantum processors now dedicated to community defense, autonomous systems reprogrammed to serve rather than control, and a town that had learned the most important lesson of all, that the future of security isn't in artificial intelligence replacing human communities, but in both learning to protect what matters most together. Because in Pine Valley they'd discovered that the most powerful force isn't found in classified AI or human tactical skill. It's found in communities that learn to turn both into something greater than either could be alone. The black helicopters appeared over Pine Valley without warning, moving with impossible stealth and precision. No markings, no identification, just the distinctive shape of next-generation military prototypes that officially didn't exist. "Those aren't normal spec ops," Thomas identified grimly. "That's Ghost Division, the ones who handle problems that can't officially exist. Missions even Black Ops units won't touch." "Commander Marcus Steele," Susan reported, pulling up classified files from her intelligence network. "Former Delta. Force disappeared 5 years ago after questioning certain clandestine operations. Now he takes contracts that even the CIA's darkest programs won't handle." Lucas's surveillance network caught something crucial. "Mom, they're using some kind of adaptive camouflage. Our thermal imaging can't track them, and the AI systems we reprogrammed can't predict their movements." The first strike came with surgical precision. Key defenders found themselves targeted by weapons they'd never encountered. Neural disruptors that could selectively disable combat-trained personnel while leaving civilians unaffected. "Targeted bioweapons," Dr. Sarah analyzed quickly. "Military prototype that identifies subjects by their tactical training signatures. It's specifically designed to neutralize anyone with combat experience." Rachel watched the Ghost Division's approach through specialized optics. Their movement patterns were unlike anything she'd encountered. A perfect blend of human unpredictability and AI precision that even Pine Valley's innovative defenses struggled to counter. "They're not here to shut us down," Thomas realized, studying their formation. "This is an acquisition operation. They want to capture our defensive innovations, our community techniques, everything we've developed." Emma's surveillance caught something critical. The helicopters, they've got diplomatic markings under the stealth coating, multiple governments involved. "Because we've become an international concern," Rachel explained. "Our success is inspiring similar resistance movements globally. Power structures are getting nervous. The Ghost Division breached Pine Valley's outer defenses using classified infiltration tech, but Rachel had prepared for this too. The town's defense network activated, not with weapons or barriers, but with something more sophisticated. "Execute Protocol Genesis," she commanded. Across town, hidden systems activated, but these weren't just defensive measures. They were broadcast nodes, spreading Pine Valley's story globally. Every attempt to erase their resistance became a beacon showing other communities how to stand strong. Commander Steele's voice cut through their communications, professional and cold. "Impressive setup, Winters, but you're interfering with power. Structures you don't understand. Some secrets need to stay buried." "I understand perfectly," Rachel replied. "You're not here because we're a threat. You're here because we're an example, showing communities they don't need to submit to control." The Ghost Division's advance faltered as more encrypted files hit global networks, documents exposing classified operations, evidence linking government agencies to criminal enterprises, proof that would shake power structures worldwide. "Stand down," Steele commanded his teams. "Situation compromised, full exposure risk." But Rachel recognized the tactical shift in their formation. They're not retreating. They're switching to scorched earth protocols, complete elimination of targets and evidence. Emma's tech team caught the change first. They're deploying some kind of quantum erasure field. It doesn't just destroy data, it alters reality itself, makes events never have happened. Reality manipulation tech, Sarah realized in horror. The ultimate classified weapon, not just erasing evidence, but changing history itself. Rachel faced a decision that went beyond normal tactical response. The Ghost Division had to be stopped, but engaging them would risk exposing her own classified background. "You can't win this," Steele's voice carried cold certainty. "We've got authorization from the highest levels. No limits, no restrictions. Reality itself will be rewritten." "That's where you're wrong," Rachel replied. "You've got authorization from people who need secrets to maintain power. We've got something stronger." The truth hit global consciousness like a tsunami. Not just leaked files, but live broadcasts showing classified units attacking American civilians. Diplomatic crises erupted as multiple governments found themselves exposed. "They're pulling back," Thomas reported with grim satisfaction. "Too much exposure. Can't maintain deniability when the whole world is watching." But Rachel knew this was just the beginning. They'd forced international power structures to reveal themselves. The response would be severe. "More teams will come," Emma warned. "Different agencies, different countries. We've become a global concern." "No," Rachel corrected. "We've become a global solution, showing people everywhere that resistance is possible." The black helicopters retreated into the night, leaving behind classified equipment and shattered illusions. Pine Valley had faced its greatest challenge yet, forces that could rewrite reality itself. "They'll try to discredit us," Susan warned, "turn public opinion against us, make us look like threats to society." "Let them try," Lucas replied confidently. "Truth is harder to kill than they realize." Because Rachel Winters hadn't just built a local defense program. She created something that threatened power structures worldwide, proof that communities could resist even reality-altering control systems. The morning sun rose over Pine Valley as cleanup teams secured abandoned Ghost Division gear. But the real victory wasn't in defeating one classified team. It was in showing the world that even the most secret government operations could be exposed and defeated by determined communities standing together. And the battle for Pine Valley had just become something larger. The right of communities everywhere to resist control, no matter how powerful the forces arrayed against them, no matter what reality-bending weapons they deployed. "What happens now?" Emma asked as they gathered in the command center. Rachel looked at her children, then at the community that had learned to defend itself against forces that could rewrite reality itself. "Now we show other communities what we learned, that true strength isn't in classified weapons or reality. Manipulation. It's in standing together, refusing to let anyone rewrite our truth. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating enemies who can alter reality. It's in helping communities discover that their shared truth is stronger than any power trying to rewrite it." Pine Valley had become more than just a defended town. It was now living proof that even reality-altering weapons couldn't defeat communities united in protecting their truth. And that revelation was spreading faster than any classified operation could contain. The battle for truth had just gone global. And there would be no rewriting this story. 1 year after Pine Valley's first stand against the Crimson Serpents, Rachel stood in her orchard, watching the sunrise paint golden light across apple trees that had survived cartel attacks, corporate takeovers, AI warfare, and reality-altering weapons. But the trees weren't just bearing fruit anymore. They marked something more profound. "Another 3 communities contacted us last night," Emma reported, her laptop displaying encrypted messages from towns worldwide. "They're not just asking for tactical training anymore. They want to know how we built something stronger than weapons or technology." Lucas emerged from his drone command center, now housed in the converted barn. The global defense network is growing. Communities aren't just sharing tactical information. They're creating something new, a way of standing together that no power can break. The morning calm was interrupted by the arrival of unexpected visitors. Not threats this time, but representatives from towns across the country. Each had faced their own versions of what Pine Valley encountered. Each had found their own ways to stand strong. "We thought we were alone," Sarah Chen explained to the gathered leaders, each community fighting isolated battles against forces trying to control us. But Pine Valley showed us something more powerful than any weapon, the strength that comes from standing together. Rachel watched these community leaders share their stories. A small farming town in Kansas that had repelled corporate takeovers by turning agricultural knowledge into innovative defense. A coastal fishing village that transformed maritime skills into unbeatable resistance. Each had discovered their own unique way to protect what mattered most. "They keep trying new tactics," Thomas reported, reviewing global intelligence. "Military force, corporate control, AI dominance, reality manipulation. But they can't break communities that have learned to stand together." The Pine Valley Community Center, once their tactical command post, had evolved into something more important. A place where communities learned not just to defend themselves, but to discover their own unique strengths. "It's not about copying our methods," Rachel explained to the visiting leaders. "It's about finding what makes your community special and turning that into unbeatable strength." Emma's global communication network had grown beyond tactical coordination. "Communities aren't just sharing defense techniques," she reported. "They're teaching each other how to turn their unique skills into protection that no outside force can defeat." Lucas's youth programs demonstrated this evolution. Kids weren't just learning tactical skills, they were discovering how their natural creativity and adaptability could protect their communities in ways no traditional defense could match. "The powers trying to control us made one crucial mistake," Rachel told the gathered leaders. "They thought strength came from advanced weapons, corporate resources, or classified technology. They never understood that true power comes from communities, discovering what makes them unique." Pine Valley had become more than just a defended town. It was now a living example that the strongest defense isn't found in weapons or technology. It's found in communities that learn to turn their distinctive character into unbeatable protection. "Mom?" Emma asked as they watched more community representatives arrive. "What happens when everyone learns this lesson?" Rachel looked at her daughter, who had grown from a scared child into a leader showing communities worldwide how to stand strong. "Then we've built something more powerful than any weapon, a world where communities protect themselves by being exactly who they are." Because the most important lesson Pine Valley had learned wasn't about tactical skill or advanced technology. It was about helping communities discover that their greatest strength was never in copying others' methods. It was in finding their own unique way to stand strong. "The orchard's producing record yields," Lucas reported, checking his agricultural monitoring systems. "Turns out trees grow stronger when they're part of a community that knows how to protect them." Rachel smiled, remembering how it all began. a former Green Beret trying to protect her small farm. She never imagined it would grow into a global movement of communities discovering their own power. The afternoon sun found Rachel teaching a new group of community leaders, not combat tactics or defense techniques, but something more important: how to help their people find strength in what makes them unique. Every community has something special, she explained, something that no outside force can replicate or defeat. Your job isn't to make your people into warriors, it's to help them discover how their unique gifts can protect what matters most. A teenage girl from a mountain town described how their rock climbing club had developed vertical defense techniques no military could counter. A desert community shared how traditional water conservation knowledge became unbeatable tactical advantage. Each story demonstrated that true security isn't found in copying others' strength. It's found in discovering your own. They keep trying to break us, Thomas observed, as more communities joined the growing network. But they can't defeat people who've learned to stand strong by being exactly who they are. Rachel watched her children coordinate with young leaders from around the world, each bringing their own unique perspectives and skills to the growing movement. Emma's tech innovations weren't just about defense anymore. They were about helping communities discover and share their distinctive strengths. Lucas had transformed his observation skills into something more valuable, helping communities identify and develop their unique capabilities. Every town has something special, he explained to visiting youth leaders, something that makes them stronger than any weapon when they learn to use it right. As evening fell over Pine Valley, Rachel gathered with community leaders from across the globe. Each had faced seemingly unbeatable forces: military, corporate, technological, even reality-altering weapons. Each had discovered that their greatest strength wasn't in matching these powers, but in being uniquely themselves. They thought they could control us with superior force, Rachel told the assembled leaders, break us with advanced technology, rewrite our reality with classified weapons. But they never understood that true strength isn't found in copying their power. It's found in discovering our own. Because the most important victory wasn't in defeating enemies or resisting control. It was in helping communities worldwide discover that they were already strong enough, not by copying others' methods, but by being uniquely, unshakably themselves. The sun set over Pine Valley's orchard, where apple trees had survived every kind of attack by being exactly what they were: deeply rooted, naturally resilient, growing stronger together. Just like the communities that had learned to stand strong, not by changing who they were, but by discovering the unbeatable strength in being themselves. "What's next?" Emma asked as they watched the visiting leaders depart, each returning to help their own communities discover their unique power. Rachel looked at her daughter, then at the town that had grown so far beyond its original defense. Now we keep growing, keep helping communities discover that their greatest strength isn't in copying others' power. It's in finding their own unique way to stand strong. Because in the end, Pine Valley had discovered the most important truth of all, that true security isn't found in weapons, technology, or classified power. It's found in communities that learn to protect what matters most by being exactly, uniquely, unshakably themselves. And that truth was spreading faster than any force could contain, growing stronger with each community that discovered its own unique way to stand strong. The future wasn't in matching the power of those who would control us. It was in helping every community discover the unbeatable strength of being exactly who they are. The battle for true security had evolved beyond resistance into something more powerful, a worldwide movement of communities protecting what matters most by being uniquely, unshakably themselves. And that was a force that no weapon, no technology, and no power could ever defeat. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.